Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be giving my predictions for the quarterfinals of the Champions League. And we got some mouth-watering matchups on display on Tuesday and Wednesday. On one side of the bracket, we got some heavy hitters going up against each other. We got Manchester City versus Bayern Munich, Pep Guardiola returning against his former club, and Leroy Sané returning against Manchester City. We also got Real Madrid versus Chelsea, two of the previous European champions who have obviously faced off each other in the last three Champions Leagues. So these two teams will not be strangers with one another. They will understand how each other play and their strengths and weaknesses. We got an all-Italian matchup between Napoli versus AC Milan at the San Siro. This is going to be a spectacle. And we also got Inter Milan facing Benfica. So let's see what's going to happen there. I think there's going to be goals, there's going to be drama, there's going to be entertainment, and honestly, let's see who's going to be able to win. However, before I go in this video and give my match predictions, you know I'm going to say, make sure you guys like, comment, and hit that big subscribe button right there, because only 10% of you guys are actually subscribed. And make sure you leave your predictions in the comment section. Who do you think is going to be winning in the Champions League quarterfinals first leg? So the first game I'm going to be predicting is Manchester City versus Bayern Munich. And like I just said in the introduction, the narrative is going to be crazy. This is Pep Guardiola first time facing his former club Bayern Munich. We also got Leroy Sané facing off against Manchester City. So let's see who's going to have the bragging rights and advance to the semi-finals of the competition. And going into this game, Manchester City for me have to be considered the slight favourites. They've been on an 8-game winning streak. They've been demolishing and decimating any team which has been in their way and in their path in any competition. Pep Guardiola has finally had some continuity with his starting 11, and they understand the way he wants them to play. And Bayern Munich on the other side obviously have Thomas Tuchel, who is a very experienced coach who knows how to get the job done. But at the end of the day, he's only had a couple of weeks with the squad, so he has to familiarise himself with what their strengths and weaknesses is. And there will be question marks if this game just came a little bit too early for Bayern Munich, the German champions. Don't get me wrong, I know Thomas Tuchel is a world-class manager, but at the end of the day, facing Manchester City over two legs, is this just going to be too big of an ask? Yes, Thomas Tuchel has gotten the advantage of Pep Guardiola. We can see it in 2 years ago Champions League final where he literally outsmarted him. However, things have changed. This is going to be over two legs, and like I said, we know Thomas Tuchel hasn't really had that much time with his players. Going into this game, I think Thomas Tuchel has to be cautious. He has to set up defensively. He has to understand that, listen, we have to play a 3 or 5 at the back to literally neutralise Manchester City going forward. This is literally Bayern Munich's best way, best method of getting a result in the first leg to take home back to Germany. We know Manchester City have struggled in the past against low blocks, European sides, when it comes to games against Chelsea and even Real Madrid at times. So can Thomas Tuchel replicate this method like he did 2 years ago to beat Manchester City yet again? We'll have to wait and see. He has the minerals, he has the talent, he has the players. Look at players like Upamecano, De Ligt. We saw how phenomenal, how resilient they were in the game against PSG, shutting down Messi and Mbappe, the two best players in the world. So if they can do that against these sort of players, maybe they can do this against Haaland, maybe they can do this against Grealish, maybe they can do this against Mahrez. With that extra centre-back at the back, I just feel like it will help stabilise Bayern Munich's defence to literally neutralise anything Manchester City throw at them. And we know going forward, they have the personnel to counter-attack with blistering pace. Thomas Tuchel was playing his fast, dynamic wingers, Gnabry, Coleman, even Mane. Imagine these sort of players against Manchester City's high line, where people like Diaz and even Laporte or even Akanji will have to be looking the other way. It's going to be an absolute nightmare if Kimmich and Musiala can find them on the counter-attack in transition. If Bayern Munich try step on the toes of Manchester City and press them and make this game about football, technical ability, and who has the better sort of system when it comes to attacking football, I think Bayern Munich will lose, because obviously they haven't had enough time to integrate a sort of attacking football style. To neutralise the threat of the counter-attack, Pep Guardiola has to be smart, he has to be mature, and he has to be wise. He has to understand, although Kyle Walker hasn't really been started in the last few weeks or so, it is pivotal for him to be on the pitch. Him down that right hand side can help players like Diaz or Kanji on the counter attack, because obviously we know Mane, we know players like Coleman and Gnabry, Sane are just going to have a field day against slow, immobile defenders like Ake and Stones, who aren't even fullbacks, they are centre backs. So they're going to be licking their lips on one-on-one duels against these sort of players. I think this game is going to be tough. I feel like it's going to be fairly close. I think there's going to be goals, but I just feel like Thomas Tuchel just hasn't had enough time to literally understand his players if they can get a result in this game. Although Bayern Munich do have the history and the heritage in this competition, Manchester City with Erling Haaland up front has just been a different monster, and we know he doesn't really like Bayern Munich because he played for Borussia Dortmund and he has a poor, dreadful record against Bayern Munich, so he's going to be looking to put this straight and right. I feel like Manchester City will win this game narrowly against Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich will fight hard, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory for the home side, Manchester City. So the next game we'll be predicting is Real Madrid versus Chelsea. And like I said in my introduction, these two sides are the former Champions League winners who have faced off each other in their last 3 competitions. So let's see who's going to be able to win this matchup between the two sides. And it's so funny how things have changed. Last season when these two teams have matched up, Chelsea entered the tie as the favourites, but obviously lost. Going into this game is going to be a David v Goliath story. Although Chelsea do have the history, the heritage and the players in certain positions to showcase their talent, at the end of the day, as a team, as a unit, they have not been excelling, they have not been performing well, and there's a reason why they are 11th within the Premier League table as we speak. And I know what you're going to say. Chelsea are the underdogs. Chelsea love and relish being the underdogs when we've seen in previous Champions League competitions. 2012 were not the favourites, 2021 were not the favourites, and they somehow crawled over the line and won both competitions. However, there's a difference when you face off against the European champions Real Madrid, who have the Champions League pedigree. Every single season, whenever they put on that white shirt, it feels like they get superpowers and they're possessed, and they always get the result when they need it. Look at the game against Liverpool, absolutely battering them at Anfield, and Liverpool don't get battered at Anfield. So how on earth are Chelsea going to be able to beat Real Madrid if Liverpool fared no chance? And we know Liverpool in this state are better currently than Chelsea, as we have seen in the Premier League table. Chelsea are in disarray. It feels like they're malfunctioning. Obviously, keep changing managers. Now it's their third manager in Frank Lampard. And we know against Ancelotti, this is a complete mismatch. It's a heavyweight going against a lighter weight. And it's pretty much illegal. It should be unfair because we know Ancelotti has the experience, the know-how, the tactical genius. Whereas Frank Lampard against top sides never understands how to get the job done. Chelsea this season, as we have seen their record against the top 10, they have not been able to beat one side once. So what makes them think they're going to be able to beat the European champions Real Madrid? And I know you're going to say, it's not typical Real Madrid who are excelling like last season, because we know they're not in the title race. But look, in the Copa del Rey final, we know in the Champions League they performed differently, and they still got their world-class players who always deliver in big moments like Modric, Benzema, Courtois, the list goes on. You can always trust these guys to deliver. Chelsea have no patterns of play. It still feels like they're strangers with one another. If Frank Lampard has any hope of getting a result, he has to change from a 4 at the back to a 5 at the back. I know he played a 4 back against Wolves, but you can't do this against Real Madrid. You got Chilwell and Reece James, who are pretty much the best wing backs, some people may say, in the world of football. Going forward, that is Chelsea's most consistent outlet when it comes to creating chances. Also, against Vinicius Jr., who's probably the best left winger in the world, you can have Reece James and a right centre back to accompany him, so they can double team Vinicius, who's going to be the most dangerous player on the pitch. So Frank Lampard can't allow his fullbacks to go one-on-one, especially Cucurella, who we keep seeing make mistake after mistake whenever he puts on that Chelsea shirt. Also, Frank Lampard will absolutely be delighted that Kante is back fit. We know his tenacity, his energy, the engine he has to literally close down players, to unsettle them. So maybe Modric, Kroos will not have that sort of time to literally pick out the pass like they usually do. But is this Kante burnt out? Does he still have the energy like he had 2 years ago to be the best midfielder on the pitch against Real Madrid? Or are those days gone? But at the end of the day, Real Madrid are the way better side. I feel like this is lopsided. I feel like this game is the only real game where you're thinking you know exactly who's going to win and by how many. The only thing Chelsea can pretty much hope for is a draw or even lose by a 1-goal deficit, and you never know what can happen at Stamford Bridge because we know in Champions League nights that is a special atmosphere. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be predicting a Real Madrid battering, a whitewash, pass on the controller to the semi-finals. I think Real Madrid will win 3-0 within this fixture. So the next game I'm going to be predicting is AC Milan versus Napoli, and we know this is going to be an absolutely marvellous game between the two Italian sides, since they know this is a golden ticket to pretty much guarantee themselves into the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League. And going into this game, if it was held a few weeks ago, we would have been thinking there was only one winner. The way Napoli have been playing all season has been marvellous, phenomenal, being the best coach side within Europe and have been playing like the best side in Europe, conceding the least amount of goals in Serie A and scoring the most. They have been on an absolute tear, and going forward, we know their special talent have been absolutely marvellous. However, in the last week or two, we know they suffered a 4-0 battering against AC Milan away from home. And the last thing you want to be doing is giving hope to your opponents that potentially they could grab the game by the scruff of the neck and literally beat you. AC Milan will enter this game with confidence. However, at the end of the day, I just don't trust AC Milan. They have just been so inconsistent. You do not know what sort of performance you're going to get out of them. They beat Napoli 4-0, and the next game they had against Empoli at home, they drew 0-0 at the San Siro. We even saw it earlier in the season, they get through against Tottenham in the last 16, and they literally get battered by Lazio 4-0. I'm not denying that AC Milan got great talent, especially on the flanks like Rafael Leao, who we know is marvellous, dribbling skills and can score goals. Giroud, who's always a steady Eddie, who's so reliable and has been one of the most underrated strikers in Europe. We also know Tomori at the back has been an absolute wall for them and is one of the key reasons why they won Serie A last season. But give me the side who are consistent. Give me the side which I know how they're going to play, and they have been excelling all season and have never really shown consistent errors to not have faith in them. Give me the side who I know how they're going to cook their meal and how it's going to taste, rather than the AC Milan side who are just uncertain chefs who do not know consistently how to get the flavours right. I feel like Napoli should win this game. Osimhen, Kvara up front, that duo has been absolutely incredible, and I wouldn't be surprised if both of them leave this summer. However, we're dealing with the here and now, and Napoli will be seeking revenge for getting absolutely battered, and this will remove any sort of complacency thinking that they're superior to AC Milan since they're already higher than them. Napoli should win this game, even away from home. They will want to make a statement in the Champions League. I'm going to go for a 2-1 away victory. So the last game we're going to be predicting is Benfica versus Inter Milan, and although this game is looked down upon compared to the other games where we got matchups made in heaven, I feel like this fixture is going to be the closest and it's too tight to call between the two sides. And heading into this game, we know Inter Milan have the pedigree, they have the experience and the know-how in this competition, which will give them the advantage over Benfica. But at the end of the day, I feel like Benfica have been better this season compared to their counterparts. Benfica have conceded the least amount of goals and have scored the most goals and have been dominating their league, whereas Inter Milan have faded off in Serie A because we know Napoli and even Roma and AC Milan have been performing well this season. And we know Benfica know how to deal with the big time bullies within Champions League games. We saw it against Juventus and PSG. In the same group as them, they finished top, which just shows you everything you need to know when it comes to Benfica and how serious they have been. They beat Juventus home and away, an Italian side. So if you want to take anything away from that, maybe they can beat another Italian side, which is going to be Inter Milan within this fixture. Also, we know Benfica got so much talent which Inter Milan have to be wary of. We know Ramos going forward can score goals, and those who are unfamiliar with him would know this with how well he did perform for Portugal in the World Cup. We know Gramado down the left-hand flank at that left-back position. He is an assisting left-back who loves to bomb forward to join the attack. Mario as well has got 23 goals within the midfield position, which just shows you how much of a goal threat he is. So him and Ramos obviously have been doing so much damage this season within the league and the Champions League, and Silva always playing in the pockets, linking up play, always trying to drop off to literally draw space for other players. So Inter Milan do have their work cut out, and it's going to be a very tough game for them. And I feel like, especially with Benfica being at home, they have to be considered the slight favourites because they have been playing better. However, Inter Milan, they understand what Champions League games are about. It's not about who's the better team. It matters about who performs better on the day. And we know Inter Milan, with their cautious setup, with that 3 at the back system, understand how knockout football is won. They'll understand that to be tight, resilient at the back, not make it end to end. The less amount of goals, the better, which means more experience has to be relied on, which obviously Inter Milan have in abundance when it comes to the Champions League. And going forward, Inter Milan aren't no slouches as well. We know Lautaro Martinez obviously had a poor World Cup, but we know has scored 17 goals in all comps for Inter Milan, which has been sensational. We know Big Rom is nothing to be laughed at on big nights in Champions League games, and we know Dzeko is always reliable when it comes to Inter Milan. So obviously Inter Milan got so many options that can cause danger threats, and if the game isn't going their way, they can always bring a different option off the bench. But at the end of the day, I feel like there's just too much attacking talent and flair coming from the side of Benfica, which is going to be very tough for Inter Milan to stop. Inter Milan like 1-1s, 0-0s, 1-0s, 2-1s. They don't like games getting away from them, and they'll try get a sort of a good result if it's a 1-goal deficit or a draw back to the San Siro. But I just feel like Benfica have been on a tear, they're beating the big sides, and they're ready to do so again against Inter Milan. I think it's going to be a 2-0 victory for the home side Benfica within this game.